Britain's life is built on the seas. Only by overseas trade can she make ends meet. At this moment, it isn't being done. It's true that compared with most other countries, Britain's record on post-war recovery, in going short, in paying very high taxes, and in exporting, is excellent. But during the first half of 1948, Britain was still, on every 8th day, living on credit. Not a comfortable position for independent people. How can the account be squared? Only by making more, selling more, exporting more. In doing this, cotton goods are vital. They've been called the spearhead of Britain's export drive. Consider what a dress length of cotton will buy. In a sense, it's food that's being woven on Lancashire looms. And the raw cotton itself, basis of the cotton trade, can only be got in exchange for manufactured goods. Cotton is a typical story of how Britain lives. On the other side of the world, a quarter of it from the deep south of the United States, over a third of it from Egypt and the Sudan, part of it from India, Nigeria and Brazil, all of it brought across the seas, manufactured under the smoky skies of Britain's industrial north and sent back to foreign lands. That is the story of cotton. That is Lancashire's story. For over 200 years, cotton has been coming to Lancashire. Here was the right climate, moist, humid. Here was the money. Here, too, the inventors, among them Richard Arkwright and Samuel Crompton, whose machines taught mankind the secret of mass production. But there were some short-sighted men in Lancashire in those days. Men who smashed machines they thought imperiled their livelihood. Crompton, who lived in this house, often had to dismantle his spinning mule to hide it from them. There are still short-sighted men in Lancashire today, as we shall presently see. Here, in the cotton region, are 70 towns within 30 miles of Manchester. 5 million people. A people of salty humor, with a gift for sharp sayings, such as, where there's muck, there's money. And you get nothing for nothing in this world, and not much for sixpence. A people whose record for settling disputes peaceably is one of the best. A people with a gift for hard work. They need that gift, for it's hard work in cotton. 6 o'clock. And there are places in Lancashire where the knocker-up is still pursuing his ancient calling. $7:15, and Lancashire's 285,000 operatives are converging on the mills. .30, and the roar and clatter of machinery has begun. This is the carding room. This is the spinning room. This is the weaving shed. Cotton to the finished fabric. Goods for the markets of the world. Just before World War I, 23 countries bought 50 million yards each, and 11 of them, from India to Brazil and from Egypt to Australia, took over twice as much, over 100 million yards each. Lancashire cotton goods proudly providing over a quarter of all Britain's exports. Beyond a doubt, King Cotton. Lancashire says, clogs to clogs in 3 generations, meaning life is full of ups and downs. Cotton has seen plenty of both. Between Lancashire in its heyday and Lancashire today, over 1,000 cotton mills have shut down. Mills derelict. Mills manufacturing things like paint, biscuits, or farm equipment. Mills just used as storehouses. Reasons are various. 2 wars compelled other countries to spin and weave for themselves, until finally there were a dozen serious rivals in the field. Among them, Japan, China, and India, all using very cheap labor. The Second War shut down hundreds of Lancashire mills to release 150,000 operatives for munitions, and most of them have never gone back. The older generation knows this history well. A story that tells of swift boom fortunes and swift ruin in the slump, of hard-won savings swallowed up in a few short months, of spells of unemployment. It is history with a deep influence on recruitment of labor for the mills today. A minor revolution has been produced in Lancashire by the strenuous effort led by the Cotton Board to find labor. In the past 3 years, 65,000 recruits have been obtained. And in scores of mills, housewives are working evening shifts. Over 6,000 workers have been brought from Europe, from the Baltic states, the Ukraine, Austria, and a good many others have come from Ireland. 2,000 more are Poles who were in Britain when war ended. And there are some British newcomers, men in their 20s and 30s, who've turned over to cotton from different trades, or who entered the forces without a trade and came to cotton when the war ended. A growing number of recruits under training are young people straight from school. Has the labor supply now dried up? Some authorities appear to think so. But is there no way of persuading former operatives to return? And are there no possible recruits on Merseyside, where 24,000 people are unemployed, among them 5,000 men out of work over 6 months? There's a drive to improve working conditions. Works councils and mill teams have been formed, 50 of them in the past 6 months, where managements and men hammer out their problems. But for every mill with a council or team, 9 or 10 are still without. Electric power and new machinery have made work more efficient and pleasant in a number of mills. These are beaming and winding machines from America, and the government itself has a scheme to subsidize re-equipment of spinning mills, a scheme now getting underway. Re-equipment is going ahead faster in weaving than in spinning. So far, however, less than 10% of Lancashire's looms are automatic, whereas in the United States, the figure is 90%, and even in pre-war Japan, it was 12%. On the other hand, the number of Lancashire weavers running more than 4 looms is steadily increasing. Are we sending overseas too high a proportion of the textile machinery Lancashire makes? Certainly, Britain needs to export, but she also needs the machinery, and the balance requires delicate adjustment. Another part of the revolution is the provision of nurseries for children, canteens, medical attention and welfare, shopping on the premises, better decoration, lighting, and so forth. Altogether, in the past few years, over £10 million have been spent in these various ways. Admirable as this is, a large number of mills have done nothing at all. Quite as important as better working conditions is the fact that leisure has increased. Cotton has a 5-day week, and weekly hours have been reduced from 48 to 45. More leisure for the pleasant things of life. There are people fond of music, and the Bessisset Barn Band, typical of Lancashire brass bands, has a history going back 150 years. A people who work hard, play hard, and spend hard. And today, there are holidays with pay, unheard of a generation ago, and now enjoyed in an industry that abolished child labor only after World War I. All these improvements, however, plus wages nearly 2.5 times as high as 10 years ago, and various recommendations of government working parties and committees, have not been enough to get that idle machinery working. Noisy, clattering looms, and alongside them, looms dusty and quiet as the grave. But the greatest revolution of all, and the one capable of having the most powerful effect on output, bears the strange name of redeployment. Listen to what Mr. Herbert Morrison, Lord President of the Council, says about it.
I am the minister responsible for civilian scientific research in every form. I've seen the evidence about redeployment, and I'm bound to say I am myself convinced about it. I know there are ways of distributing jobs, ways of using labor that can get far better results out of a given number of work people, save on production costs, and yet pay every man and woman a fair and good wage.
This is a mill where redeployment is being carried out. This adjustment of the workload so that, for example, 2 workers may do without any more strain what 3 are now doing. Redeployment isn't easy. It cannot improve output everywhere, and it usually takes 6 months of careful experiment and reorganization to get it moving. Industrial consultants have applied to the cotton industry methods that stepped up output in the aircraft factories during the war. At the moment, redeployment or other scientific methods of a similar nature are being applied to about half of Lancashire's spindles. And in the weaving sheds also, the more looms to a weaver principle is gaining some ground. But despite the valuable work on redeployment done by the trade's own research scientists, and despite the drive and energy of the Cotton Board, Lancashire is to some extent divided on this question. In October 1947, at a conference of directors and managers presided over by Sir Raymond Street, chairman of the Cotton Board, it was agreed that output could be raised 10 or 20% with no more labor or machinery. Yet that increased output has not everywhere been achieved. There are cotton employers of great vision and enterprise, and there are others. There are trades union leaders who see redeployment as an attack on the security and dignity of labor, so that in several Lancashire towns, redeployment has hardly begun. Other trade union leaders, however, believe redeployment will raise output and wages with little or no more work. And these have spoken strongly against insularity of outlook, saying that if the old machine wrecker attitude of mind is adopted, the cotton industry will be overwhelmed and engulfed. Despite magnificent work by individual employers and workers, these are the hard facts. This reduced output is due to shorter hours, older age, green labor, difficulties of supplies, and absenteeism. Is the present situation good enough? Granted that this is an old trade with a wealth of old buildings most difficult to modernize, that new equipment is very costly and hard to get. But is Lancashire satisfied with the position? Is Lancashire living up to the traditions of the past, to the enterprise and invention of Kay, Hargreaves, Arkwright and Crumpton? It's true that at the moment, cotton output and exports are rising, but by no means fast enough. Moreover, another factor is becoming of added importance, namely, reduced cost of production. In looking ahead, what about multiple shifts, quite common in the United States, but seldom practiced in Lancashire? What about the new Britain that's being built? The new health service, the new Education Act, earlier pensions. How is all that going to be paid for? What was that Lancashire saying? Nothing for nothing, and not much for sixpence. The British home market is very short of cotton goods. Indeed, Britain alone, if there were no rationing, could absorb all Lancashire produces. Overseas also, these high-quality goods are in great favor, notably in the United States and Canada. Here, and in cities and remote areas of the British Commonwealth, the Middle East, Africa and Asia, cotton goods are the currency that buys for us food and raw materials of all kinds. With Japan's textile industry, once the most powerful competitor, down, for the time being, to much less than half what it used to be, Lancashire has a great opportunity. It is within her power to increase her own prosperity and Britain's too. This is Lancashire's time for adventure in this modern age.